What makes for an awesome game master? Is it the time they take to craft their worlds? Is it the reading or effort that goes into GMing? Or is it the administrative functions that come with it? It could also be all three of those things. And in all of those skills and tasks a GM brings to the table, it's bound to be a lot of emotional, physical, and mental labor. And that got me thinking, is game mastering a selfless activity? Because no person would inherently do all of that without at least wanting something or feeling accomplished. So, today I'll be unpacking whether GMing is a selfless activity. Should you give a crap if it is or not? And hopefully, by the end of the video, you'll come away with, at the very least, an appreciation, understanding that GMing is a labor of love, but also something more. First, let's define what does selflessness look like. And I want to be open to multiple slash similar definitions, so let's cast a wide net. First, from Cambridge Dictionary. Selflessness is the quality of caring about other people's needs and wants than about what you yourself need and want. From Oxford Learner's Dictionaries. Selflessness means the quality of thinking more about the needs, happiness, and etc. of other people than about your own. So, for game masters, this applies to them giving their time, energy, and resources on behalf of the players because the GM wants to make sure the players are having an awesome time. And these supposedly selfless deeds can take so many various forms and shapes. It could look like the GM is preparing a pre-written scenario and uses a lot of their free time at work or school to do so. It could look like running a sandbox game with heavy focus on survival mechanics, and the GM had to study the book extensively to fully understand and immerse themselves in the material. It could be the one who manages players' schedules and time conflicts all the time, without consideration of their own schedule and their own personal life. GMing could also include creating music and or playlists for your game, of course, to the point where it might seem ridiculous to some people on the outside. All of these tasks and more are done with the intent of creating fun out of the kindness of one's heart. And that is true. But does that make game mastering inherently a selfless activity? And the answer is no, but also yes. It's nuanced. Before you click off, hear me out. GMing can come from a place of selflessness. You can want to do right by your players, and I think that is perfectly healthy. I would argue that most game masters, especially those who are friends with their players, want to do right by their players and make sure that they're having fun. Because if they're not having fun, how can you have fun? But also, your fun and hopes as a game master matter as well. You are, and I think should prioritize that too. And of course, you can gain joy from GMing because you enjoy how others react. However, if you avoid all of your personal responsibilities and your own health, then that selflessness can become neglect. Sometimes when we over prioritize others' feelings without any consideration of yourself, end up neglecting your mental, physical, and emotional well-being. Furthermore, if you are the game master emphasizes selflessness, where does that selflessness come from? Where and why do you prioritize that over yourself? Is it because of your upbringing? Is it a personal philosophy you uphold? Or could it be a matter of insecurities that the GM is using this gaming time to avoid? I can't answer that question for you, but it's worth doing some self-introspection and thinking, why do you GM? And how much of your time are you giving trying to be selfless on the sake of others without even considering that you as the game master deserve fun and also deserve to be selfish sometimes? And I don't mean selfish in the sense of rude and needy all the time and taking attention away from the players. I mean selfish as in taking care of yourself, which is entirely reasonable. With that in mind, if you know that you are a selfless person or someone who likes to give as a game master, I think there are a variety of ways to give that don't take away your agency, your own mental, emotional, and physical well being, and your own love for the game, and your own wants for the game. What matters is ask yourself, how do you want to show up as a game master? And what does giving look like to you? Do you say cook for your players whenever they come over? Maybe you make their favorite dish, or maybe you order food. Do you have an array of miniatures for them to select that you painted for them? Maybe you all work together on those miniatures and you really want to make sure that these look great for your players' next awesome encounter. Are you creating loads of handouts for your players that they will need for, say, their investigative RPG? Or is the group traveling together for inspiration for their next TTRPG game? And you as a GM did a lot of the planning. There are lots of ways to give yourself as a game master. And if you're the kind of person who enjoys giving, then it's best to see ways you can give while also balancing yourself, as I've mentioned earlier. And this brings up another point. Is the GM a thankless job? And I'll be honest, I think that statement has a lot of merit. Game masters work hard to make their games feel seamless, and players who have never ran a game might not understand that running games can be difficult, time-consuming, and energy draining. So, when someone runs a game out of the pure kindness of their heart and doesn't really feel like they're appreciated or accepted or thanked, that can definitely lead to burnout and feelings of inadequacy at your table. So, what are players and game masters to do if they feel like this is a thankless job? Starting off with players. Players, it might be best to show appreciation to your GM. And I'm not saying just telling your GM thank you. Tell them specifically what you enjoyed about the session and or campaign. Obviously, if you do not have anything specific, that's okay, but showing clear intentional statements about the story y'all created together shows you as a player are paying attention and care about the content. Listen to your GM if they need help also. Creativity can and is draining, so sometimes listening is part of the process. For example, if the GM gives y'all a plot hook, it might be nice to go to it. You can even ask the GM directly, what within your prep would you like us to do? So checking in with your GM and showing clear appreciation to what you enjoy in the game can go a long way for a game master. As for game masters, set clear boundaries with yourself on when and how you as a game master give. This means maybe setting times you GM prep and when you do not. Maybe you game prep early in the morning before work or late in the evening after work, rather than say all throughout your workday. This also means setting reminders for yourself to drink water, make meetings outside of game prep, hanging out with family and friends, and just taking care of yourself outside of playing tabletop role-playing games. Secondly, stop looking at selflessness as a binary. Being selfless as much as being selfish are not binary issues. They are products of our material conditions, wants, and desires. If you are selfless because you dealt with neglect, that is a product of your past and that's something you should discuss with a therapist. Likewise, if giving yourself to a 5+ year campaign seems like too much work, respect yourself and do not commit to what you don't have the energy for. I think game mastering is as much about the game and your players as it is about where you are in your life and what you can and cannot give. Your socioeconomics and what you have in your life will determine your ability to GM and also what you pull from. So be introspective about your life and your circumstances. And it's okay to know that you can only give so much. Just be kind to yourself. This is a hobby and you're doing this for fun. Thirdly, accept that even though you might be an awesome game master, you're not going to always get thanks. And no, I'm not trying to sound like one of those out of touch, stupid ass boomers who gaslights like saying, "Oh, these darn GMs or kids nowadays just want handouts for doing nothing, are just so darn sensitive." I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that sometimes when you GM, you're not going to get the thanks and appreciation you want. Maybe you set higher expectations for yourself, or maybe you want higher attributions for something you did, but your players don't recognize that. They don't see all the work you put in. Your players' enjoyment won't always be proportional to the effort you put in. Sometimes, as long as your players are in good vibes and in a happy zone in your game, that might just be enough. And that's a hard pill to swallow. But that's a pill I had to swallow, and you might need to recognize in yourself. And if through all that, GMing feels like a drain due to it feeling like a job, then start collecting coin, start collecting money, and or start collecting resources from your players. Obviously, have a conversation about that with them, but if you're feeling like you're putting in lots of work and don't feel accurately and properly cared for, ask for what you want. If it feels like a job, then start GMing professionally and getting paid for all the time and effort you put into it. Because at the end of the day, if it feels like a job, maybe you should transition it over to being a job. You don't want to end up bitter. You don't want to end up like that game master who stops GMing because you're burnt out, tired, and have lost the joy that made you want to be a game master. Because I think altruism and selflessness are pretty much essential to any game master. No sane person goes out of their way to prep games about fictional worlds with people online or offline, paid or not paid, because they dislike it. But there's only so much we can give, and we need to be realistic on what we can give, and vice versa, what players should be giving in return. GMing and playing in that sense is about the interactions that we have with each other in game and out of game. It's the energies, resources, and stories we share at the table together that are dependent upon our socioeconomic factors and our own personal lives. Because as much as we hype up our heroic D&D characters or fearless Cthulhian investigators or super-powered heroes, we should also hype up the game masters who share in the social fun that are role-playing games. And if not, you can always check out this lovely resource on game mastering that I made a video on over here. And finally, special shout out to my Patreon supporters, Jakibi, Harrison Parker, and Paul Volpe for your continued support. If you too want to support this channel, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And join my Patreon and Coffee down below in the description box. And as always, I'm your average everyday queer host, Blurry Disposition. You all have an awesome day. Ciao.